ECOWAS has officially confirmed the withdrawal of Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger from the regional bloc. But in the spirit of regional solidarity, the organization has announced temporary measures to ease the transition for citizens and businesses. Until further notice, passports and identity cards bearing the ECOWAS logo from the three countries will remain valid, and goods and services from these nations will still be treated under the ECOWAS trade liberalization scheme. Citizens will also continue to enjoy visa-free movement, residence, and establishment rights within ECOWAS states. The bloc says these arrangements will remain in place while leaders determine the next steps in their engagement with the three nations.
And within that 1 year, they have all the latitude to withdraw their notification. The notification of the three countries that were communicated in January 2024 were not or have not been withdrawn. As a result, the authority acknowledged during its summit in December, on the 15th of December 2024, that the three countries will cease to be members of ECOWAS from today, the 29th of January 2025. On 13th of January 2025, I wrote to all three countries to communicate the decision of the authority with respect to their notification. I also informed them about the directive that the Commission has received regarding the need to initiate withdrawal formalities. In that respect, I've also asked them, invited them, I have proposed that we meet at the technical level to initiate the withdrawal formalities.
Joining us now on this show is Dr. Kester Onor, a senior research fellow at the Nigerian Institute of International Affairs and a visiting lecturer at the Institute of Peace, Security, and Development Studies, Nnamdi Azikiwe University, Awka. He'll be joined later by Honorable Cletus Obun, a former lawmaker, researcher, and communications expert. Dr. Kester Onor, thank you very much for joining us on the morning show.
And thank you for having me.
Well, very quickly, how important is this turning point in geopolitics in West Africa? And do you think that the remaining members of ECOWAS have really no option but to eat the humble pie in the face of the belligerence of the military-occupied alliance of Sahel states, Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger?
Thank you very much, Dr. Ruben. In the light of the recent happening, it's obvious that under the concept of national sovereignty, every country, they have their legitimate right to choose where they may belong to, But then looking at the affinity, within the ECOWAS member of states, it's obvious that even though they have ended up maybe creating, alliance of Sahelian states, we have not seen the last of them. We are still looking forward that maybe in the near future, they will return back to ECOWAS. Needless to say that it's quite disappointing that they pull out of ECOWAS at this particular juncture. However, we are optimistic that all hope is not lost. And moreover, even if you look at the window of opportunity that has been given to them by ECOWAS, at least still recognizing them as our own brothers, that they will continue to do business, within ECOWAS, even the residency, and even using ECOWAS passports. ECOWAS has equally given, that authority to the world body to recognize them, not to deny them of any benefit as of now. That is to say that all hope is not lost, regardless of the fact that they have even moved ahead, maybe to, design their own passports. But we are still hopeful that, at the end of the day, ECOWAS will still remain strong, or will still grow stronger and stronger. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Onor, and I'm glad to hear that. So it's interesting to hear that, your optimism about ECOWAS despite the withdrawal of these three countries. However, what's your evaluation of the impact on security, especially the concerns around, jihadists, terrorists around in these regions, and how in the Sahel region, and how the collaboration, or at least them being a member of ECOWAS, would help to push back on that? What do you think the implications of their withdrawal would have on the fight against insurgency, against terrorism, against jihadists in that region?
Ayo, thank you very much. When it comes to regional security and the collaboration, it's obvious that even Niger, as we all know, is part of a joint multinational task force. For the fact that they are not part of ECOWAS for now, does not mean that they are going to withdraw from other security collaboration. You remember that security is not a responsibility of a country. Looking at this age of globalization, and when we talk about the issue of terrorism, non-state actors, these are, challenges that cut beyond national boundaries. So it's obvious, that all hands must be on deck for us to fight, this menace headlong. Because regardless of their withdrawal, there are other cooperations and collaborations that are still taking place. So I don't think that their withdrawal, will affect the security architecture within the ECOWAS member of states. Remember that if you look at these countries, most of these countries are landlocked countries. So they still require the cooperation of other ECOWAS members, for them to operate effectively and efficiently. So when it comes to security, it's a collective responsibility for all the countries within the ECOWAS and the Sahelian region, for them to ensure that the security of life and the property of every citizens within these regions are taken care of. Thank you very much.
Okay, let's look at it this way. What can be done to bring them back? And in an event where there's an internal crisis among these nations, maybe an opposition or maybe within the military fold disrupts the system, is there a possibility that we're looking at them coming back? Because this is just because we have some renegade officers that are leading those nations now, like Mali and all of that, and these are officers that are only there for their selfish interests, because many of the overtures made, for instance, with the likes of Mali, some of them were even led by former President Goodluck Jonathan, but fell to nothing because these leaders were adamant on their own position. So is there a possibility that might happen anytime soon?
Thank you very much. The possibility of their coming back is quite obvious. Considering the fact that they are not the first to pull out of ECOWAS. Even the other country that pulled out tried coming back, but ECOWAS just placed them on a particular status for now. So considering the fact that these three countries are under military juntas of now, we are hopeful that by the time they return back to democratic governance, that yes, they will come back. However, we are not going to, we should not be unmindful of the superpower rivalry, that are taking place right now. If you realize, maybe you see the level of animosity and the acrimony, within these countries against their former colonial masters, that is France. It has become, it has become obvious that France has not actually done a very good job in these countries in terms of development, in terms of bringing them, up to the global stage. Because if you look at their principle of assimilation, it has not actually worked effectively in this country. And the level of disgruntlement among these nations, these are part of the things that are fueling, these challenges. So I'm looking forward, to ECOWAS that we come together, regardless of the superpower rivalry, then coming together, galvanizing themselves together and bringing each other together. I believe that in the nearest possible future, these countries will come back to ECOWAS.
Well, Dr. Onor, yes, it's good you brought this up. You recall that the AES, the three countries, their main allegation is that the remaining members of ECOWAS are auxiliaries of France trying to destabilize their countries. Do they have a strong case in that regard? I know Nigeria has rejected that label as a French auxiliary, but they remain adamant in that regard. And their problem is with the sanctions that ECOWAS impose. I asked you a question as part of the first question, that do you think ECOWAS could have played this game differently? All the sanctions that they imposed, they have withdrawn now, at a point when it became clear that these three countries don't want to return, to use your phrase, for now. Could diplomacy have been adopted differently?
Thank you, Dr. Ruben. Well, first, let me take the first question. The first question is that this country, do they have legitimate claim against ECOWAS that are being manipulated by foreign powers? Yes. We should equally realize that these three countries are being ruled by junta governments. And these are the government that come in through unconstitutional means. And you know that the ECOWAS protocol on good governance and democracy, does not, tolerate unconstitutional change of government, especially military incursion into politics. From the look of things and from what we have seen so far, yes, anytime you see the military coming into politics, people always cheer them, but they have not actually professed solution, Before you know it, they will still go back to the same issue of corruption. So I saw that accusation as maybe something they put forward just for their own survival. You understand? Then coming to the way ECOWAS has treated the issue. Well, maybe a mistake may have been made here or there, but this is not a period of maybe, maybe blame game. No, I think we have a long time, past that period. But ECOWAS has now lifted the sanctions, and they have given them, favorable conditions for them to be reintegrated back, So, but for the fact that maybe you can see that they have a new alliance now, because these three countries are now working in tandem with Russia. And we all know, the present happening globally, especially the position of Russia, the war in Ukraine, other things. So we cannot maybe use maybe the accusations that are now leveling against ECOWAS to justify. ECOWAS as a regional organization, we have come a long way. And ECOWAS has actually, performed creditably well in so many areas. For the fact that they're having these challenges will not make us to discredit, all the various efforts that ECOWAS has put together. Remember the role ECOWAS has played in Liberia, in Sierra Leone, in Gambia, in Cote d'Ivoire. So these are roles that, that no other regional organization, even European Union, have not been able to play such a stabilizing role. So for the fact that these three countries now decided, to form an alliance and pull out of ECOWAS, that shouldn't give us the impetus to begin to discredit the good job that ECOWAS have done and the things that they have continued to do. Thank you very much.
All right, that's a bit doubtful in some quarters. If three poor nations like Niger, Mali, Burkina Faso decide to withdraw from ECOWAS, as ECOWAS approaches 50 years of its establishment, one might think perhaps the powers or the influence of the regional bloc is reducing. People don't see the relevance of it, and now people are looking to other alliances instead of working with the region. So, for instance, as you rightly mentioned, these Sahel countries are looking at have already formed an alliance with Russia. What does this mean? Is there a concern that other nations as well might explore this option and decide to withdraw from ECOWAS as well? Or is this a wake-up call for ECOWAS to begin to find ways to strengthen itself as a regional body?
Well, thank you very much, Ayo. Well, will I say, in the first place, it's a clarion call for ECOWAS, for them to come together and strengthen the organization through strong institutions. When I'm talking about strong institutions, I'm talking about maybe laws, that we guide the organization, serious establishment that we move the organization into a desired end, But then at the same time, like I said earlier, we cannot, we cannot forget the role of Western powers, or let me say superpower rivalries in Africa, not just in ECOWAS. Recently, we saw the crisis in Congo, the Democratic Republic of Congo. About nine South African soldiers were killed recently by M23. So there are crises everywhere. Just like I said initially, for the fact that these three countries decided to pull out of ECOWAS shouldn't give us the impetus to discredit ECOWAS in all the good job that they have done. Remember that these three countries that have pulled out of ECOWAS, none of them are under democratic rule. So these are military juntas. And they felt that the harsh condition or the harsh sanction imposed on them, does not give them any choice, because ECOWAS gave them mandate for them to return back to democracy. So they felt it has not given them any choice, either for them to pull out. And for the fact that they have a strong backing from Russia, then they took that bet. But I believe that we have not had the last of these countries. Very soon, I'm optimistic that they will still come back to ECOWAS. Thank you very much.
But time is running out. Damage is being done as we speak, even to their own native country. And also, are we going to say that ECOWAS has failed in its responsibility as it celebrates 50 years, which was supposed to be, a celebratory time for ECOWAS, but this is the time that we are seeing ECOWAS disintegrate? Another part I want you to talk about is the role of leaders in ECOWAS. Another one is coming. We might have another crisis brewing. Alassane Ouattara wants to go for another term. God knows who is going to be able to tell Alassane Ouattara no. The reason why the situation in Mali and Burkina Faso happened was because of the political class and their shenanigans and activity. Is it the time for ECOWAS to be bold enough to tell Alassane Ouattara or to get?
Dr. Rufai, thank you very much. First and foremost, ECOWAS has not failed. Like every organization, regional organization for that matter, they have their ups and downs. ECOWAS is trying to navigate through a difficult, challenges that are facing them now, just like every other regional organization and intergovernmental organizations. When it comes to maybe leaders or sit-tight leaders or leaders trying to change the goalposts when the game has already started, we should understand that these are sovereign nations and there is a limit to what ECOWAS can do. Yes, we have a positive of, when we talk about good governance, these are part of, scarce currency in this part of the world. Yes, we are crying because we know that most of the challenges we are having in Africa is as a result of what? Good governance, which give birth to corruption, and tribalism, inter-ethnic clashes and all these things. The major problem is good governance. That African leaders, many African leaders, they have not learned the trade of administering scarce resources, to the benefit of their people. Yes, like we say, ECOWAS is an institution. If not just ECOWAS, if all those heads of states of ECOWAS can come together and tell themselves the truth and abide by the rules, because the rules are there, There are so many treaties governing, all these ECOWAS countries. But this, you discover that many of them are not playing by these treaties, especially when they realize that what they are pursuing is for their own personal aggrandizement. Thank you very much.
Okay, Dr. Onor, I'm aware that the Gusau Institute, which is headquartered in Kaduna, is organizing a session, virtual, session on ECOWAS. And that's going to be, looking at the past, the present, and the future of ECOWAS. ECOWAS will be 50 in May. Now, what are your thoughts about the future of ECOWAS? Cletus Obun has now joined us. If you can address that, and then we ask Honorable Cletus Obun to also share his thoughts with us. But the future of ECOWAS.
Thank you very much. Just like I said, every international organization, they have their ups and downs. And if you look at the globe presently, we are at a crossroad. You look at crisis here and there. We have the Russian-Ukrainian war. Then you have the Israel-Hamas crisis. All over the Middle East, there are crises here and there. Then you see the DR, Congo DR. Then you look at terrorists roaming here and there. You understand? So if you talk about the future of ECOWAS, yes, based on what they have done in the past, based on what they are doing now, remember that ECOWAS, we have about 15 member states that are members of ECOWAS. For the fact that 3 countries have left ECOWAS, you are not going to jettison what the other 12 countries are doing. You understand? ECOWAS will continue to work, and they will continue to grow stronger and stronger. And I'm optimistic that maybe in the next 10 years, we will have a stronger ECOWAS. Remember that the other sub-regional organizations within ECOWAS, like we have the minor river basins. So I see a situation whereby even the alliance of Sahelian states may equally be subsumed later, and they become like those sub-regional organizations within the ECOWAS member state. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Honorable Cletus Obun is with us now. Thank you very much for joining us, Honorable. We've been discussing ECOWAS and the decision by the leaders of ECOWAS to say, well, the AES, the Alliance of Sahelian States, still have the opportunity till July 29 to reconsider their decisions. But meanwhile, they have gone ahead to create a new passport, even if ECOWAS is saying they are still members of ECOWAS in their own reckoning. What do you think of this development? And what do you think of the future of ECOWAS as it celebrates 50 years?
Well, the first point to make is that the ECOWAS, the constitution of ECOWAS has been more or less a convenient way of dealing with economic and regional security crises in the past. And most of it has always been upon Nigeria playing the big brother role, not just in the West African sub-region, but also on the entire African continent, whether it is in Sudan, whether it is in Congo, Democratic Republic, in Central Africa, whether it is in Libya. Nigeria has always been there. But on the West African coast, if you remember, you had the UNAMIL, you had the what they call ECOMOG in Sierra Leone, in Liberia, and all that. Today, we are now faced with the Sahel states. The implications are both economic and security. There are security and economic implications for now and in the future. What that means is that Nigeria, again, is being called to play the big brother role along with its brother state, its sister states on the ECOWAS region. And of course, don't forget that between the Maghrebian nations and the Sahel, there is a large piece of land, especially lying within the Mali and Ivory Coast area of this territory. What that means is that economically, the demands and the economic relations will now have to be going through all kinds of bilateral agreements for you to execute anything. On the security front, information gathering and terrorism, which has grown over the times within that area, will now become a major crisis for ECOWAS, because for you now to do any business or to engage them will now require that you are dealing with another sub-regional body, which means it's as good as going to EU or going to BRICS or such other organizations. That is the meaning of what the Alliance of the Sahel States will mean to ECOWAS as it is. Like you've rightly said, the ECOWAS have said, look, we are giving you time to think about this up to July. But what that also means is that you are begging the question. But you ask yourself the basic question, which is one of the things I want to bring out this morning. This is an opportunity for President Tinubu to rise up to the occasion and take control of the sub-region. Because Nigeria has lost so much and gained so little in these relationships. We went to Liberia, we went to Libya, we went to Sierra Leone, we were in Sudan and even formed the new nation, South Sudan. You ask yourself, what is Nigeria's international relations or diplomatic benefit of doing all this? In other climes, other nations, what they do and what they have is the self-interest of that country that is interfering or intervening or intercepting crisis in these other regions. You saw what the Americans and the Asians tried to do in Niger, in Niger and Chad in recent times when they had to pull out. France also had to start trying to pull out because they had to take their military bases to those areas. You know, does Nigeria have this kind of interest to protect in the countries in which they have had to intervene to keep peace? We keep keeping peace at great cost to Nigeria in men and material. What is the implication for us this time around if we have to insist that we must maintain the South African, the West African sub-regional sanity in terms of security and economic benefits? What is our economic interest? What is our military interest? What is our overall security architecture that will benefit from the ECOWAS sub-regional groupings in terms of our own participation and in terms of our own cost-benefit analysis of what it implies for Nigeria. So for me, therefore, this morning, I want to say to President Tinubu, this is an opportunity for you to step up your game and take control of the West African sub-region in a manner that Nigeria and Nigerians will see the need and the reason for which Nigeria keeps spending so much and losing so much men in trying to keep the peace in West Africa. So for me, ECOWAS therefore has a duty at this time to ensure that these three countries that want to break away and form a sub-regional body are not just allowed to go and then return at will, as if West Africa or the ECOWAS is just waiting for partners that will have no impact and add no value on the table of brotherhood on the African continent. That for me is, this morning, is my take on that the economic implications are there, but they are not as heavy. Let me give you the statistics. The entire population of the three countries put together is a little above 77 million. That is less than Borno State, Kano State, Lagos State, Benue State, and Niger State put together. In landmass, they are just about 1,200,000 and something square kilometers. Nigeria has 923,000 square kilometers, Nigeria alone. That is not West Africa. This does not include Ghana and other the other 12 countries that constitute ECOWAS. So if you are talking about benefits and if you are talking about implications, Nigeria shouldn't worry and West African countries shouldn't worry, except that information gathering in terms of security, intelligence sharing, and other such things will be affected, but it will be very minimal. Therefore, stern and serious diplomatic moves must be made to ensure that Nigeria's interest is first protected before we start talking about West African interest. Because if you don't do that, these countries will keep making it look as if Nigeria must beg the question and beg to be members and beg to continue to intercept in their own internal crisis.
Okay, on that note, we'd like to thank you very much for joining us, Honorable Cletus Obon, and also thank you, Dr. Kester Onor. Thank you very much indeed.